At present, the Syrian Air Force successfully uses 40-year-old fighters, which should be in museums a long time ago. This is a necessary measure. There are an acute shortage of spare parts, fuel and ammunition in the country, which is torn by civil war for over 5 years. So the MiG-21 comes to help the Syrian Air Force. One of the areas of operations where the fighters perfectly proved themselves not only in their main role of interceptors, but also as bombers, have been in the city of Deir ez-Zor. We see an elderly pilot in the rank of colonel. This officer of the Syrian Air Force is an extra-class professional pilot. The experienced middle-aged pilot could leave his service for staff work, but due to the civil war he decided to stay. He's been flying on such an aircraft for many years and believes that it's still too early for him and his plane to retire. The usual pre-flight operations are servicing and testing of the onboard systems. There's a minimum of avionics, only a full manual control. The pilot before flying traditionally examines and touches the fuselage and the wings with his arms. Today, the Syrian pilots have a lack of ammunition, so they have to make their own bombs in small workshops. The main body of the bomb has visible traces of rust and uneven welding, but in general they work. The numbers of flights is limited, not only due to the state of the equipment, but also to the lack of fuel and explosives. The aircraft are capable of performing spot bombings, since they're flying below 2000 meters, and this is the SAM envelope of terrorists. Soviet equipment, which has been developed more than 50 years ago, is still successfully carrying out its tasks. This fact demonstrates excellent quality, easy maintenance and reliability, which has been provided by the Soviet military industry in the 60s.
You can guarantee that a 1950s designed MiG-21 or French Mirage would just hopelessly whip the F-35.
Well, Russian pilots benefit from the most advanced jets, but for their Syrian counterparts it's a different story. Some of their equipment dates back to the 1960s. RT's Murat Gazdiyev visited their home base near the city of Hama.
Almost half a decade of civil war has left the Syrian Air Force depleted, battered and bruised. Nevertheless, they're still flying on jets, some of which are older than my parents. The MiG-21, for example. In many parts of the world, you'll only find it in museums. In Syria, on duty. In its youth, this jet flew and fought in the skies over Vietnam. It is one of the most, if not the most, mass-produced jet in the world. It's easy to fly, it's easy to maintain, and the bombs are Syrian domestic ones. The rust and rough finish probably give it away, but Syria's military industry is not what it was.
It's a strong, tough plane and safe as well. It does everything we ask of it. On average, we fly 3 or 4 times a day.
This pilot says he now has 2,500 flight hours. That's more than 100 days spent in the cockpit. That's not the only rarity on the airbase. another Syrian aircraft, the MiG-23, which dates back to the 1960s. This particular jet has apparently just returned from a bombing run in the vicinity of Morek, a village that was recently seized by jihadists. One thing they don't seem to be short on is enthusiasm.
We are on full combat alert and carry out orders day or night. The pilots even compete to fly on missions.
Near the hangars, we found what the locals call the Hell Cannon Graveyard, homemade artillery captured from the rebels. Where the Syrian Air Force is criticized for using imprecise weaponry, including barrel bombs, the rebels incite terror among civilians with the Hell Cannon. It fires gas cans packed with nails and explosives up to 5 kilometers away, with little by way of accuracy.
We still don't understand these jihadists and their attempts to destroy our country, and why Western powers spread misinformation to the world about what is happening here.
Morad Gazdiev, RT from Hama Air Base, Syria.
5,000 troops, 14 nations.
VJTF, NATO's Very High Readiness Joint Task Force.
NATO's spearhead force.
Designed to react to a crisis situation
At short notice.
The VJTF land component is comprised of
Artillery.
Armor.
Infantry. A headquarters that can be deployed within 5 days.
formed in 2014.
To enhance the alliance's collective defence.
To ensure NATO has the right forces.
In the right place.
At the right time.
We had one base which were attacked every second day, so we had a gas inside the building, and Ground Commander's decision was to destroy or neutralize this guy inside the building. So we called for an airstrike and we destroyed the building.
A JTAC is a special breed. You need to be able to handle a lot of stress. You need to be able to handle a lot of inputs from different players like airplanes, ground force commanders, bullets flying around you. So it needs a special breed to become a JTAC.
NATO allies do not and will not recognize Russia's illegal and illegitimate annexation of Crimea. We should all work towards the settlement of the conflict in eastern Ukraine by diplomatic and peaceful means. Doing this would allow Ukraine to develop from violent outside interference, and it would contribute to an overall improvement in relations between NATO and Russia. President Ghani and Chief Executive Abdullah at our summit in Warsaw reiterated their commitment to reform.
On Afghanistan, NATO member states have agreed to continue to fund the Afghan army and police through 2020 and for the training mission in country to continue.
Today we also recognized cyberspace as a new operational domain, joining land, air and sea. This means better protection of our networks and our missions and operations. NATO's cyber posture remains defensive, but this is a clear sign that we are strengthening our collective defense in all areas.
Cyber is a new form of weapon, and it can and will be used, and we have to be able to deal with that, just like we have to be able to deal with tanks or aircraft or missiles.
Today we have decided to declare initial operational capability of the NATO ballistic missile defense system. This means that the US ships based in Spain, the radar in Turkey and the interceptor site in Romania are now able to work together under NATO command and NATO control.
It's important to understand that the NATO nations provide the resources for ballistic missile defense. And everything is linked in here to Ramstein, where we monitor NATO nations' airspace. If we do detect a missile launch, it immediately comes in and we take action.
Importantly, the system we are building is entirely defensive. It is designed to shield against attacks from outside the Euro-Atlantic area and represents no threat to Russia's strategic nuclear deterrent. This historic decision will enable us to work even closer together than ever before. Our security is interconnected and we face a range of unprecedented challenges. Separately, neither NATO nor the European Union can fully address them. But together, we are a formidable team with the tools necessary to protect our citizens and to project stability in our neighborhood.
We want to contribute to addressing the refugee and migrant crisis through maritime operations in cooperation with the European Union.
Together, we are also tackling the human trafficking in the Aegean, and we have seen results. The number of crossings have decreased from thousands a day to close to zero. We also decided to step up our support for Iraq, to start to do training inside Iraq, to enable Iraq to be stronger in its efforts to fight terrorism. In the long run, training local forces is more effective than deploying large numbers of our own forces in combat operations. It is one of the best tools we have in the fight against terrorism. Prevention is better than intervention. We also decided to do more when it comes to support from NATO to the International Coalition fighting ISIL by providing AWACS support to the coalition. NATO is playing a key role in the international efforts to fight terrorism, and we decided to step up our efforts at the Warsaw Summit.
In aviation, use the word impossible with the greatest of care.
So in the pioneering spirit of Igor Sikorsky, we chartered the X-2 team to do just that, to achieve the impossible by doubling the speed of a helicopter with unprecedented performance and maneuverability.
So I want you to know that Lockheed Martin has been doing the impossible for a long time. It started with Glenn L. Martin and the Lockheed brothers and Igor Sikorsky all at the same period of time, coming back with innovations to change the way we fly and the way we operate.
I laugh and say I pinch myself, but as a test pilot, to have the privilege to sit on the pointy end of technology is just a once-in-a-lifetime for few. It's just an honor and a privilege to take part in some of the history of Sikorsky and, again, set the stage for the future.
We've demonstrated the technology, but now go on with kind of the remarkable work
of replacing the Black Hawk and Apache helicopters.
The fact that we are now developing a series of helicopters significantly larger, such as the Raider, to prove that the concept of the X-2 can be scaled up.
Future vertical lift will be a mix of this X-2 technology from the Joint Strike Fighter.
What the X-2 has done to helicopters, the Joint Strike Fighter has done to airplanes.
And the idea to bring all that together to define what's next is very exciting.
And the X-2 is a great example of working together with a company now that's going to take that from the X-2 advanced blade technology into the future with Defiant. Defiant will be a very dynamic aircraft.
It is really a compelling capability. So proving the physics allowed us then to set the stage for product opportunities, which are now in front of us.
So it's exciting to see that technology come together in an airplane that does speed and maneuverability at the same time. It's a pretty exciting future for pilots.
205, 210 knots, left 215.
It's the dynamic of people that want to do the impossible, making it possible today.
Being told that something is impossible didn't stop Igor Sikorsky from realizing his dream of a machine that could save lives. And it didn't stop the X-2 team from achieving the impossible again by redefining the helicopter and revolutionizing our industry.
We are testers, and by nature have a very critical bone in our body, and it is a very necessary part of we are all about finding problems and being close enough to the engineering and design process to be able to effectively underlying support structure, I think, has been eye-opening to a lot of the individual Marines out here. And I think they have a better appreciation for how difficult it is to take an airplane from a concept to actuality on a flight deck on a amphibious function.
We've been out in high seas, 6-degree rolls, better than 2 degrees of pitch. We've been high wind over deck, external stores, heavyweight takeoff, men's performance takeoff, which is good, double barrel on purpose.
Some of our other flight operations stuff is done with the technology as it was kind of stuff for us. We really need to do that. Situations that you might not see every day, but on the day that it needs to see those situations, we know that it can perform. opportunity to drop live, which is a first not only for the F-35 total, but also for this particular
very heavyweight off the front spoke, then find area.
We're in an environment on land, living and breathing thing, and it rolls and on the land. And everything we're doing out here is to test that dynamic interface between the aircraft and the ship flight deck. This really is the culmination of years of effort to be able to test the final configuration and development of the F-35 3F configuration and to provide full weapons capability for shipboard operating bulletins for the fleet for the next coming decade.
We're not winning battles right now here, what we're doing, but we're winning future battles. For us to refine those procedures so that our lance corporals and corporals, who will be staff sergeants and gunnery sergeants taking this airplane to sea in future Marine Expeditionary units or other contingency operations, we're building that seed form right now. And they're refining the procedures that are ultimately going to make them more efficient 5, 10 years.
It may seem like we've been here, done that before, because we've done 2 of these detachments. But really, I haven't seen anybody drop any of their detachments been here before. Even though it's the 3rd sea trial for us, we're still making history. The team takes it dead serious. It is work at a dedication and selflessly dedicated effort level that is just unparalleled. I've never seen anything like it. I'm so proud to be surrounded by the talent and the dedicated personnel.
Расчет внимания, доложите об осмотре местности БСП номер 4. БСП номер 4 произвести огонь по противнику с гранатомета и БПУ.
Обнаружен. Провести доразведку. Огонь!
До перспективных исследований должен выглядеть солдат будущего. Вместо стандартной экипировки так называемый экзоскелет. Мускульная сила человека в нем увеличивается в разы. В очки бойца проецируется информация, поступающая с беспилотника или с прицела автомата. А значит, и стрелять можно из-за укрытия, даже не видя цели. Технологический макет антропологической платформы или в простонародье робот-водитель. Уже сейчас он способен вести автомобиль, распознавать границы дороги и другие машины. Управление комбинированное, то есть действие его контролирует оператор. В будущем инженеры собираются научить андроид самостоятельно садиться в автомобиль и без посторонней помощи добираться до пункта назначения. Даже имя для демонстрационной модели придумали – Федор.
Now, you might think the prospect of killer robots stalking the battlefield sounds like science fantasy, but as well as unmanned aircraft, the U.S. already has thousands of military robots in Afghanistan. And now a Russian team have built one too. RT Stombarton reports.
Could the armies of the future look like this? Well, not just yet. But militaries around the world aren't ignoring robot technology. The US has been using unmanned drones for a number of years. Now it's testing land-based robots in Iraq and Afghanistan, which, despite being in their early stages, are showing a lot of potential. But what about Russia? Well, a team from Moscow Bauman Technical University have been at work on some answers.
This was the team's first creation. It's a bomb detecting and destroying robot. First, it analyses the package with these sensors here, and then destroys whatever explosives inside with high-powered water jets just here. This was the team's first creation, and then they moved on to military robots like this one. This is a spy robot. It's able to look around corners and up into first-floor windows with an extendable camera. And then, if it needs to call in fire support to tackle the bad guys, it calls on this next robot.
In fact, these creations are the latest in a long history of robot development in Russia. Longer than you might think.
In 1938, Russian robot tanks were invented. They took part in the Russian-Finnish War. The person who controlled it was in a shelter pressing buttons. He was able to see the tank and to control it. The tank attacked and shot on its own.
But despite this early innovation, Russian robot development has been largely ignored since the 70s. The US took the lead and now has thousands of robots operating in Afghanistan. This team wants Russia to catch up. But will their robot meet with approval from the Russian army?
I can't give you a definite answer if this robot will be used in our army, but we hope so. It may not be this exact model, but something improved, modified and modernized.
Robots don't rule the battlefield yet, but thanks to Ilya and his kind, this might be a shot in the right direction. Tom Barton, RT.
Roger this.